don't, your competitors are. So how do you convert all this research? You've done all this work. You've gotten all this information. How do you convert it into intelligence? Meaning, how do you convert it into actionable things that you can go to influence what the bid you're about to bid on? Well, it helps you with your OSBU meetings, because you know if you go out and you look at their forecasts, which are all online across the government, then you know where to focus. So instead of just going in and saying, hey, I'm an XYZ company, help me, or here's what I do, you go in and say, hey, I see that you have these needs right now. I see these opportunities are coming down. I want to come talk to you about these specific opportunities. It also helps you if you want to go and visit the government program manager. We do, as part of another organization I belong to, we do hundreds of interviews with government every year, and we ask the question at the end of the interview, what is the message to industry, how they can interact with you better, and the comment 99.9% of the time is do your homework. Know what my issues are. Know what my problems are. I don't care what you sell. I don't care about your technologies. I don't care about your solutions unless they help me solve my problem. And I pretty much, whenever I'm trying to get government meetings on behalf of my clients, if I focus and do the research on the issue that I know that government program manager is dealing with, unless contracts is jumping in there blocking meetings, almost 100% of the time they will meet with you. And they'll meet with you, and what's great about that it won't just be them. They'll bring everybody on their team, sometimes across the entire agency, who's struggling with that problem. So all of a sudden the audience of a one-on-one becomes a one-on-12, which is awesome for you. The same thing with the CIOs. I think a lot of times we focus on the contracting offices and the program managers to go visit, but we also need to understand the CIO's perspective. If you're going to bid a technology that isn't in congruence in where they're going in their architecture or where they're going in the enterprise licenses that they're buying across the organization, it would not be helpful to you in your bid. You could be downgraded because you didn't understand that. So getting an understanding of what are the technologies these agencies are procuring in the past, what are they focused on, and validating that so when you visit with the CIOs that you understand the message. The contracting office, it isn't always easy when they get thrown these procurements and are told they need to have it awarded in 30 days or 2 months sometimes. So they need to be aware of who you are and what you have to offer and why and what past performance you have that make you a good partner with them. So how do you know all of that? How do you know what they're looking at? A lot of this research you're doing helps you with that. For networking events, when you're going to networking, any networking event, if you can get the list of who's coming in advance, it's really, really important because it helps you target who you're going to meet at those events, and then understanding what those organizations, whether it's government or industry, care about, so you're targeting your message there and essentially your elevator speech to them focused on what problems you're solving, what issues you're solving today, not what technology or project or products you're selling. And then again, for association, committee, and program participation, if you join an association, you join a committee, sometimes it's overwhelming. They have so many things going on in there. You want to target what is it that they're focused on that's going to help you take all this intelligence that you've gotten and a research that you've gotten and utilize it to further your knowledge within the bid to get better connections within the government and industry. And then this is continuous. There is no one, okay, now I got the answer and it's the answer. This has to continue on and on and on because people make changes in decisions. They make changes in strategy. Their budgets change. So it's not a one-time thing. it has to be continuous research until, frankly, you win the award or lose the award. Peggy?
Yeah, and I'd like to add that, and this is something Kathy, I know, mentions all the time, you really want to lead with what is the business need, not your capabilities. So by doing this research, you're going to be a lot smarter on what the business is, as opposed to coming in and selling directly your specific capability or service. And that is what the government wants to hear. How are you going to help them fix their problems? Not so much on what your technology or your service does in terms of general knowledge. So the smarter you are, the more interesting this is for your buyer. So pipeline activity. Kathy, did you want?
Yeah. So how do you convert this intelligence into pipeline activity? How do you take all this information you're finding and get it into your pipeline? Because we all know at the end of the day, your pipeline is what you're going to pursue. Your pipeline is your forecast for your organization that, yes, I'm looking at enough opportunities to garner the revenue I need in the coming years. And frankly, the number that is used at the lowest level is that you should have 4 times the amount of opportunities in your pipeline that you think you need to grow your business in the direction that you're trying to achieve. And what that means is that you have a 25% chance of win probability of everything you're looking at. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, it's all about, do they have the money? Do they have the funds? You have to understand their budgets and where they're going. And frankly, in this very political time where we've got potential changeover in Congress and maybe in the administration next year, and things like hot topics like health IT are going to be highly at risk, the least riskiest opportunities to go after is current work, recompetes, programs that have already either are in the pilot stage or are pretty much into rollout because the funding has already been allocated. The projects that are, hey, we'd like to do this, hey, there was an act that was passed that says we've got to look into this, but there's no funding, those are going to be more difficult. So when you want to focus where you're going to go, focus where the agency has already gotten the money. Sources sought. Take a lot of those sources sought seriously. I don't know how many times I talk to an agency, and especially the small business advocate, and I say to them, how can I participate in this opportunity? And the comment is, well, did you respond to my sources sought? And companies will say, well, I'm too busy, or I didn't have the time. A sources sought is not an RFP. It has nothing to do with compliance. It has to do with getting your name in the game. Many times what happens, even if you respond to a sources sought and you read it and you go, I can't do all of this, I can do part of this, I'll bring on partners later to do the rest of it, you should still respond, because what I've been told by many of the leadership in an agency, in the procurement shop, the OSBU shop, they all sit around and go, I just read this company. I don't think they're a right fit for this sources sought, but I'm going to contact them on that web opportunity. I'm going to contact them on this construction opportunity, whatever you're focused on, because, frankly, that's the better fit for them. So have that sources sought available, actually a draft for that, a boilerplate as we have done for that, and use all this market intelligence on how you respond to that, because you know what this organization is looking at. Because remember, the people who are reading that aren't just the people looking at that one opportunity. They're looking at all of their opportunities, and there might be a fit for something else. RFI responses, again, not only making sure that they address what's in there, but make sure you hit all those hot buttons about you. what type of small business you are. If you're HubZone or SDVOSB or ADA, use that RFI response not to just respond to that source of thought, dot the I's and cross the T's, but also to promote you and anything else about you. It's sort of free marketing for you. White papers, if you know an agency, an organization that you want to bid with is struggling with an issue and you've got the answer, write a white paper about it. It could be 1 page. It could be 2 pages. You write a white paper and say, hey, I heard you might be looking at this issue. I wrote this white paper for another customer, even if you did or not. You wrote it about something else you had done and you helped them. You'll see many times white papers, if they're targeted right, all of a sudden your lingo in that white paper is showing up in the RFP that's coming out. So use that as an ability to influence. Marketing, generic marketing, you can't say enough about marketing. And marketing is not some big ad campaign. It's not having the latest, greatest website, although I do have to tell you, the first place they look at is they go to ccr.gov. And if you don't have the right NAICS codes in there, if you don't have the points of contact in there, if your website, which is the first thing they link on, isn't up to date, if you want to be somebody that's bidding health information technology and you don't even have the word health on your website, or if you're doing great work in their agency and you don't even mention in a case study you're doing work in there on your website, that can really, really hurt you. So make sure that the marketing collateral you have, that your website, anything of the low-cost items that you have that you don't have to spend a lot of money on are done well and reflect the current state of where you are, not where you were a year ago. And then lastly, it's all about building relationships. We cannot say this enough. It's who you know. So be on the street with your business development and face-to-face meetings. Don't do it from your office. A lot of us don't like to get out there. You got to get out there. And frankly, when you're out there in an event and you know that's not your personality, link up with somebody who is. If you've got a person in your company who's in operations who is passionate about what you do and loves to get out there and talk to people, bring them with you. Because, you want to have a goal when you're at these events, when they're out there talking. I'm going to walk away with 5 people I've talked to where I've explained the issues I'm solving, and I have follow-up with them on an opportunity that they, as a customer, is pursuing or as a partner in the government is pursuing. Peggy?
Wow, Kathy, there's not much I can really add here other than saying for small businesses, the source of thought notices, the RFI responses, they are critical. This is how you can truly help to influence, even though you do not have the client relationship or the customer relationship. This is how you can form your first impression and then follow up to get those kind of calls. And I agree with Kathy, the marketing is critical. You really have to not only tell the customer in a targeted way, but you really need to reflect that you are in this business, that you're committed to doing this. And it is a highly competitive market right now, so you really do need to look your best. Your website is your storefront. That's the first place folks do go before and after they meet with you. So keep that website as fresh as possible.
Yeah, and one other thing before we turn it back, when you're writing your RFI response to a source of thought, at the same time you should be finding out who the program manager is and getting a meeting. It is amazing to me how many people respond to a source of thought, prepare their response, and then they say, I never heard back from anybody. And then they found out it was awarded to somebody else. So it isn't just a written response, it's also your ability to get a meeting with the customer as well.
Kathy and Peggy, you have done a fabulous job today, and we have questions just rolling in. I'd like to bring Steve back, if you don't mind, and have him ask some questions before we sign off for the day. Would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Steve Lamberson is a business development specialist at the Fort Detrick Business Development Office. And Steve, you're manning the emails right now. Would you like to start with some of the questions?
Yeah, you bet. And I do have a question that came in from Ben. Ben asks, how do you validate conflicting information between the databases like input says versus industry or versus a customer? How do these databases get their information?
Well, frankly, that is a good question because, for these organizations to be successful, they have to hire junior people. And frankly, what they're doing is they're calling the government contracting officer and saying, hey, when's the RFP coming out, et cetera. They're also, you have to note that they're at a point in time, and their job is just to get any answer, put it in the database, and be done. So I actually tell people you can never trust, as far as procurement timeline, what's in that database. You can trust a document. You can trust anything that is factual. But when it comes to getting the procurement timeline, I have actually read procurements where they say they still don't know when it's coming out, and it's already been out and awarded. So you've got to be very careful of that. So think about it this way. It is the customer's comment about where the procurement timeline is. Nobody but the customer's timeline. And if you don't get it directly from the customer, which is the contracting officer in this case, because once the program goes into procurement, it is procurement that drives the train. So you have to be very, very careful about that and not assume that the answer in there you get is the answer. Peggy?
I agree. Just to really validate the information, I like to go to at least 2 or 3 sources, and the preference is a government source over speculation or something that may have been overheard at a conference.
All right, well, thank you both. I do have another question from VJ. How do you research who are the best partners to go with in pursuing opportunities versus just whomever you know?
I think that it's easy if you're looking at something and you get a nice large company or a very name brand company that calls you and say, hey, do you want to be on my team? And many times I have to tell clients that I work with, whoa, hold the phone. Just because that company contacted you, how do you know that they can win this? So you have to, first of all, you have to do some homework on your own right. Who do you think the top 4 to 5 players are going to be? And you need to proactively approach them. And not only do you tell them your story about why you would be a good partner, but you need to make them tell you why do they think they can win. And come prepared with 5 to 6 questions you're going to ask them that you think are crucial. If they don't understand this, if all that intelligence that you've built, if this intelligence you've built, it's new to them, then they aren't the right partner because they're not doing what you believe they need to do to win this. So don't be reactionary. Don't be awed by somebody big coming to you. Don't feel just because somebody has alerted you to an opportunity that you're bound to bid with them. If the opportunity they alerted you to is something that is public, you have the right to talk to anybody you want to, even if you have an NDA on the call. An NDA means that anything I tell you about my organization you can't share, but an NDA non-disclosure agreement doesn't mean that any public information has to be kept in that conversation with them.
And I would also add it's critical, particularly with a product, when there is a product involved, to closely evaluate the requirements and any certifications the government is requiring of the product. So really do a lot of thorough analysis. Many companies have partnered with, with what they thought was the right solution, and it turned out that the government really wanted something else. So you need to be careful there.
And I'd like to add to this because we have companies come in all the time, and they're looking for partners. They're looking for companies that have specific past performance or relationships with a federal customer that can help them. And maybe they have a small business set aside, but they don't have that pertains to a solicitation, but they don't have that key past performance or relationship with the customer. So they sit down with me, and I show them how they can identify these type of customers or these type of companies that have received federal funds from specific government clients. And then from there, you can find points of contact and emails and phone numbers. And these are through a variety of websites that's available to all of us, usaspending.gov, with CCR, with what the Federal Funding Accountability Transparency Act has a website. So there's a lot of resources out there to help research companies that have specific past performance. And
and adding on to that, that's a very good point, is that what you do have to know from your customer, the end buyer of this, what you have to know, is it more important that I've worked in this agency before, even if I haven't worked on this type of work before, or is it more important that I have the past performance in government doing this type of work? I can tell you the majority of time I hear it's more important that you've done this work before anywhere in government than it is just that you've done work in my agency that might not be this work. But you need to know from the customer's perspective what's important so that if you're looking to join a team, you're telling the right story. And if you're looking to select a partner, you're getting the right partner from the customer's perspective.
Steve, I have a few questions that have come in. If we have a few more minutes, would it be okay to roll into them?
Take it away.
Okay, great. I have a question that came in from Marcy. She says, this is a lot of data. Do you recommend any way to keep it organized, a CRM system? I'm using Outlook with Excel, but not so successfully.
Well, I think that a lot of organizations spend a lot of time buying, I don't want to give credence to one over another, but buying a lot of these databases that held their pipeline in Salesforce.com or something like that. My biggest problem, it's not the database you hold it in, it's what do you do with the data once it's in there. So until you have a regimented process for how you review these bids, like weekly pipeline meetings every 2 weeks, you really can start out with an Excel spreadsheet and save the time of buying some complicated system and then nobody ever reviews the data. So I usually say keep two types of databases. You have and again, it can be Excel spreadsheet. It can be very inexpensive. You have an Excel spreadsheet that covers all of the calls you're making, what we call your call plan. You might say that you want to work in a particular agency, and this partner is very strong in there, so you need to go meet with them. So maybe they're in the call plan, but you haven't really identified any opportunities yet. And then once you have identified opportunities that you want to focus on, you need to put it in your pipeline, again, which would be an Excel spreadsheet, which will have things on like, who is the customer, who's the point of contact, what message do we want to get in there, what's the status, what's our next steps, when's the RFP come out, what is our partners. So you can do it in a very simple format, but if you don't have the process moving to a more complicated system, which frankly has dozens and dozens and more fields to fill in, isn't going to do you any good if you don't take what you have today and have a process so you execute on that. What I tell folks is that if you have to have 4 times as many opportunities in there, in any discussion you're not going to be able to cover them all. So every pipeline meeting needs to talk about the top 5 to 10 opportunities that are closest to coming to closure as far as bidding them, or after you've bid them, any follow-up on them. And every meeting you say, what else can we do to increase the win probability on this opportunity? If you don't do that, any sort of database isn't really going to help you.
That is excellent advice. And Kathy Minshew and Peggy McShane, two extraordinarily experienced women who have given you a wonderful amount of expertise to help you position yourself better by gathering market intelligence pre-RFP. And this is just one more in the series of the full Fort Detrick Business Development Office webinars. Steve, would you like to wrap up today and tell us what else is happening at the Fort Detrick Business Development Office?
Yeah, I'd like to share some feature benefits about our office. Fort Detrick Business Development Office, we are a free service. It's available to those companies interested in competing on federal contracts, specifically those contracts that are in support of Fort Detrick. We provide education and training to companies of all levels of federal contracting experience, such as this webinar on gathering market intelligence for RFPs. In addition to training services, the FDBDO provides market information on solicitations that are released in support of Fort Detrick. Now, timing is very important when addressing a solicitation, so we match the solicitations with those companies that are registered with the FDBDO. And registration and all FDBDO services are free, and you can register your company at our website. Again, that is www.fdbdo.com. Our next presentation, Gloria, if that's okay, I'd like to throw
Absolutely.
That in. Okay. Yeah, we have another webinar presentation that's coming up on the schedule. This one is going to be on grant solicitations. It's titled Grants 101, Writing the Grant. Now, we don't have the exact date for this at the moment, but it is going to take place in November. So keep your eyes on our calendar of events that's located at our website for that exact date. And you can see the complete list of all webinars and event activities located at our website, the www.fdbdo.com.
And I'd like to plug that as well. Please sign up for the newsletters and announcements that Steve and his whole team send out, because they're just full of events that the FDBDO focuses in on, sponsors, and all related to business development opportunities and activities in and around Fort Detrick. It is a wealth of information. I love pushing out the announcements even further. Once I receive them from your office, you put together a really solid listing of activities. Thank you very much for everything you do, Steve.
Thank you very much, Gloria.
Absolutely. Kathy and Peggy, I know that you two have to go, and it's time for us to wrap up from today's session. Right now on your screen, you're seeing Kathy's contact information and Peggy's contact information as well. Feel free to call them directly, send them emails with your questions, get in touch with Steve Lamberson directly at the Fort Detrick Business Development Office as well. And my name is Gloria Berthold Larkin. I'm with Target Gov. We're also here to help you. You've got the experts at your beck and call. Email us, call us. We're here to help you, all four of us. So thank you, everyone, for participating in the session. Stay tuned for more information from the Fort Detrick Business Development Office. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.